So I've never really heard this term thrown about, so I'm going to think that I created this phrase, Fed bashing. If you are not a fan of Fed bashing, that might not be the video for you, but to be honest, I don't really know how you can defend this. Hello and welcome to FTTR, I am Hugh McQuaid, and today we are talking about some more business related stuff. In particular, we are going to talk about the Ridge Holland WWE situation, which has seemingly got way out of hand. Now, when I say way out of hand, I mean it has been very poorly handled by the biggest wrestling company in the world, and we're going to talk about that in just a few moments. But before we do, please subscribe, please like this video, please comment your thoughts down below, and I'll try to reply to every single one of them as we dive into this, starting with the overall story that has happened so far. So if you haven't been following this, Ridge Holland, you probably know from WWE, he was a member of the Brawling Brutes with Sheamus and Pete Dunne. He went to NXT for a bit and he worked some TNA shows. When he was in TNA, he picked up a foot injury, a leg injury that required him to take a lot of time off. Now, that's pretty standard for wrestlers. That's pretty standard in the industry. People get injured all the time. However, where this differs a little bit is because when he was injured, taking time off to recover and get the therapy for his foot, his contract was not renewed by WWE. That to me is egregious and horrendous, because this is a guy who was injured on your watch, wrestling in a promotion that he probably shouldn't have been wrestling for, because he's not got a contract that says he needs to wrestle for TNA, one assumes. So from there, if you're releasing someone who is injured, that to me is just scummy. That is really scummy, because how this has escalated now is that Ridge Holland took to his social medias and basically laid out that he is unable to currently pay his mortgage because he's unable to work. He was released from his contract and contract not renewed, and because of the foot, he can't do any wrestling, can't do any bookings. So what is he supposed to do? How is he supposed to earn a living if he can't do his profession for at least a year? That is where you sort of come into this. No, WWE, this is not right. You cannot do this. This is so unbelievably wrong, because if you're going to not renew his contract, you at least sign him to, I don't know, a 12-month extension or something, so you can pay him while he is injured, because he got injured on your watch. I think we can all agree that that's pretty bad, right? And this comes under the TKO era. This is under the TKO umbrella, in which we've seen them be ruthless with some of the things that are happening with contracts. Not to the same extent as Ridge Holland, but the Andrade situation is, again, another legal nightmare in which a 1-year non-compete is egregious, because how are you supposed to make money doing your profession? It doesn't make any sense. If you're released from anywhere, like, I don't know, if you work in retail and you leave and they're like, you've got a non-compete, you can't work in retail for a year, then unions would be all over that. That would just not be acceptable. And I feel like lately a lot of these things have sort of come under scrutiny with the contracts of WWE contractors, because they're not employees. We forget that a lot. They're not employees, they're independent contractors, which still doesn't make sense. However, this whole situation has just formed a huge clusterfuck for WWE. And to be honest, I think they're getting off lightly. Not a lot of people are talking about this as much as they should, because this is a huge story. The fact that this guy can no longer afford to pay his mortgage because he got injured under a company's watch and then they didn't renew his contract is insane. And if there was a union involved, a wrestlers union, they would be able to be like, no, this practice does not stand. You cannot do that. It's insane and mind-blowing to me that this happened. And I think with the slow sort of trickling of other contract stories that have happened this year, this is the one that sort of broke the camel's back, straw that broke the camel's back for me, and that I wanted to talk about because I just think it's shit. There's no other way to say it other than this whole situation is shit. Now, I know that Ridge Holland, he has since been booked for GCW, so he is going to appear there. I think it's like a convention, so it won't be like any in-ring stuff, but I think it's a sort of meet and greet thing. But he can't wrestle. He can't really get bookings, and sort of as an independent promoter, if you're not doing a convention, hypothetically, why would you book someone who's injured who may not appear for 7 months on your show? And that is what he is facing as an injured, released star. So I can see from the independent promoter's point of view that why would we do that? Why would we give this thing to fans just to sort of see you if we're not doing a convention? We can't really run an angle or anything because you are injured. But at the same time, if you're injured, and he should be being paid while he's injured and was injured under WWE's watch. It's as simple as that. It is simple as that. And I think this is a story that has not gained enough traction, to be honest. I don't think people are talking about it near enough. I think this is something that, we had that big sort of independent contract thing from John Oliver a few years ago. Sort of that was under the Vince McMahon regime. And he did this huge tirade on the independent contract things. This is something that I think should be brought to the attention of people like in sort of the mainstream, not just the wrestling bubble. This is something that people like John Oliver, Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Fallon should be taught. Not Jimmy Fallon, because Jimmy Fallon, I don't like Jimmy Fallon, but he was the first one. Jimmy Kimmel was what I meant to say. I don't really like Jimmy Fallon. This is what they should be going on, doing their monologues about and bringing it to the public's attention. Then when the public gain attention of it, they should be investigating and saying, how does this happen in an industry? It's unheard of. It's absolutely unheard of. And I think it is the lowest of the low business practices. I'm genuinely not a fan. Like, that's putting it lightly. I think this whole situation is horrific. Like, really horrific, really, really bad, really scummy. And I want to know what you guys think. Support Luke Menzies, follow him on X, give him your support. And you know what? I'll say it here. I'm not going to act like I'm the biggest Ridge Holland fan, because I'm going to be blunt. I was never a big Ridge Holland fan, People like Ridge Holland, but I was never really watching WWE that much at the time. I saw a lot of the stuff with the Brawling Brutes. Did they have a match at WrestleMania? I think they did. They fight the Hurt Business? I feel like they had a match at WrestleMania, but I can't remember what it was. So I'm not like a die-hard Luke Menzies, Ridge Holland fan. I'm just a person who can see when business practices are shitty. And I'm not a big business person, but I don't need to be a big business person to realise that this business practice is shitty. So support Luke Menzies, support Ridge Holland, and all the wrestlers who don't get their contracts renewed and end up in these same predicaments until something changes. So yes, I do think that this is a shit show. I think it sucks. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and I'll try to reply to every single one of them. Thank you all ever so much for your support, and have a nice day.